All right. Welcome. Welcome to episode 4 of the Radical Love podcast with me, Corey Beadle, where we talk about how a revolution in love will transform your life. And I am so very pleased to introduce our guest today. He is an executive and life coach, a business development consultant, an ordained interfaith minister, a professional speaker, and a successful entrepreneur with over 25 years of executive leadership and management experience. He's a native New Yorker. He received his undergraduate degree at Stanford University, a master's degree from the University of Southern California, and, if that wasn't enough, an advanced coaching certification from the Life Mastery Institute, and was ordained at the New Seminary. He lives in Jersey City with his lovely daughter, Paloma, and his beautiful wife, Donna, and of course their wonderful puppy, Daphne. So please, that's important to note, help me give a warm welcome to Mr. John Mark Shaw. I feel like I'm channeling my inner Oprah.
Yes, thank you, Corey. I'm so blessed and grateful to be here with you today in this divine appointment, and so grateful to you for asking me to be a part of this beautiful, heart-centered, inspired podcast that you've created for the world. So thank you very much. I'm honored to be here today.
You took the words out of my mouth. It's an honor for me as well, an absolute pleasure. And also, I just love that the fact that what's coming to me now is just the technology, the fact that you're in Jersey City and I'm in Los Angeles and we're making this happen. And that is just, I think, something to also be grateful for. And
yes.
Even in that way. And then because in that moment when you were saying that, I was just closing my eyes and feeling that and feeling my connection to your heart. And then like, oh, and that heart is in New Jersey City. That's East Coast, West Coast. Here we go. Yeah. Yes, I love it. So thank you. And what, my purpose and passion here, it really is to have a, revolution in radical love. It's what's come to me earlier in the year and been the impetus for this podcast. And the idea, again, of radical love is that we just, if I just, straight talk, like we just give ourselves a break and love ourselves right where we are, and nothing in the external world has to change for us to be able to do that. So in other words, and you and I are both, we have these educational backgrounds and masters and all these things. And we can sometimes, I think, in the world get focused on, well, all right, look at that resume, look at that CV, and isn't that great? You should feel good. But the point is, we should feel good, and we can, not the should, I'll take the should because we don't want to should on ourselves, but we can, we can feel really good about ourselves regardless of degrees and regardless of our body, and maybe we want a thinner body or a more muscular body or whatever it may be. But in order to actually invite and bring forth all of those things, or a relationship, the foundation comes from loving ourselves.
Yeah.
I call that radical love because I think that's what most of us aren't taught. They're taught, get the degrees, get the things, X, Y, Z, and then you feel worthy.
And I was very much on that train. So part of the reason why I have, the degrees and the cert, they're blessings, and I'm proud of myself for having worked hard and things that I learned, but they're certainly not required. Yeah. And to be, a thoughtful, wise, powerful presence. And but I'm somebody who spent a lot of his life seeking external approval and validation of my, to validate my own sense of self-worth. So that's certainly something that I can relate to. And so I hold the certifications and the degrees with an open hand and a light hand, knowing that I'm grateful for them, and I also know that they're, they are what they are. But there was a lot of seeking approval in my life, so I understand that.
Yeah,
I
and
understand how that impacts.
how beautiful for you to have, not only have that awareness, but to feel confident enough in yourself to share that, not just as a human, but as a man, because we do move, although I do believe, and I know you believe this as well, that we're spiritual beings having human experience. That human part of us does live within the facts and circumstances of the world.
Yes.
Navigating that. So, as a trailblazer in the way that you are, to openly speak from your heart and say, yes, I'm a man. And that means, yes, there's the masculine qualities. And then this, if we're going along those constructs, the masculine qualities and the feminine qualities, and I'm embracing both. Being here on this podcast talking to me about radical love is very powerful. And some might say, well, what do you mean you're talking about love, bruh? Like, what about that? On my last podcast with Rusty, who of course, another dear friend, he was like, initially, I'll be honest, even the name Radical Podcast, I was like, that sounds a bit feminine, which was surprising to me and illuminating, because I thought, really, even the name Radical Love, and I think now, when I thought about it more, it's not the radical, but the love, talking about love.
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, I love Rusty, but I would think, to me, the radical sounds like divine masculine, and the love sounds balanced to me, actually.
Okay.
There's a sort of, to me, the energetic of radical has, and again, I think of these as not men and women, but divine feminine and masculine yin yang qualities. Absolutely. And I believe that there are truths to those archetypes, and that, whole people embody both, masculine and feminine. And actually our greatest power comes from fully embodying both sides. Absolutely. And I think, women now are embodying much more of that divine masculine in terms of owning their power in the world and asserting themselves in the world. And I also think that the singular most important thing going on the planet right now is the rise of the feminine, right? And so I think it's the rise of the feminine aspect in men, in women, the heart-centered, loving, accepting, the intuitive, the imaginative, the spiritual, all of those elements of femininity that are on the rise. And, and it's also the empowerment of women, of course, is a subset within that larger movement, which is obviously incredibly important. And as a father of a daughter, to me, it's the exact perfect timing, because I'm grateful that my daughter is going to grow up in a world of real equality. And that she can, that she is standing on the shoulders of so many women who fought for that for so many generations. And so.
And men.
Yes. And men.
Like yourself. Like yourself. Exactly. Yes. And so powerful. And I think that is, and it's also beautiful because we both look at this through the lens of, as an ordained minister and as a prayer chaplain, for many years, we have that, we also have that lens through which we look at it. When I would teach this at the university in one of my classes and looking at gender constructs and the masculine and feminine, I didn't add the word divine, but I know it's, I know the truth, and that, and the idea, the philosophy that, of course, that it is a construct and that we have it both within us. And it's both an, external and internal, the way that it, we move through the world. And it really is so powerful. And it's a powerful time. It's a powerful time. And speaking of which, and in that way in which the divine feminine is the open-hearted, and I do believe vulnerable, and speaking our truth and not having that facade. And we can all have that, whether we are moving through this life as, depending on our sex and our gender, but not feeling like I have to have that wall up and I can't really talk about what's really happened. You've been so powerfully and beautifully open about your journey, as you're just talking about your daughter, Paloma, but your journey to fatherhood. Would you like to share a little bit about that with us?
Sure. I mean, so first of all, I had a long journey of what I would call, I think it's interesting that both Rumi and Marianne Williamson use a phrase called healing the barriers to love. And so I had a very long personal development journey of evolving my heart to be really ready for true partnership and marriage. And although I had many relationships throughout my life, I didn't get married until I was 40. I think I met my wife at 46, and we got married, I think I was 46 or 47. So that's certainly later in life. And when I met my wife, I think she was 40, about to turn 41, or she had just turned 41, I believe. And so we were older parents, and we fell in love in a spiritual workshop, actually, a personal development spiritual workshop. So not surprisingly, and it's great to have found somebody else who's on this path. And we both were very clear that we wanted to be parents. And I feel like it's important to express that I don't think that that's the path for everyone. And I don't think that it's important, I think everyone has their own journey and their own vision for the lives that they would love. And many people have a vision that does not include having children, and have incredible lives and are very happy and fulfilled. But for me, personally, I felt very much that being a father was core to my who I wanted to be, and what I wanted to express, and my purpose in life. So I was in a place of very much wanting to find a partner, live my calling and dream in my career, and also part of that calling very much being a father.
You're ready.
And so my wife was very much that way as well. And so we felt some pressure to move quickly because of the kind of the realities of, that as you get older, it becomes a little bit more challenging to create a child. And so when we met, we fell in love. We, decided, we got married within 9 months, June. We met in September. And we were very much all about, we want to make a baby and we want to do it right away. And so we went on this journey. And so my wife is a holistic health coach, and very much is focused on holistic health, which sometimes includes Western medicine, but certainly includes all sorts of alternative ways of healing yourself and your body, and was very grounded in her power, being a drugless practitioner and a holistic health coach and serving people in that way. And yet, when we began our fertility journey, we had a lot of friends around us who are older parents, who put a lot of pressure on us, saying, this is going to be very hard. It may not happen for you, and you better go straight to IVF and, it's all kinds of sort of medical assistance, because, the odds are not in your favor at your age, right? And so what happened at first was that when we started, we had a lot of faith in our bodies and in God and in each other, and didn't really think so much that it was going to be a problem. We thought the bigger problem was finding each other, but once that we had found each other, it would be a logical extension and a next step of our love, and that it would all work out fine. And we're both healthy people. But we allowed ourselves to fall into this mass consciousness of fear, doubt, and worry, which is, as our teacher, Mary Morrissey, tells us, is the kind of the dominant broadcast of our culture. And in this case, it manifested as, you better go straight to these doctors who specialize in IVF and, assisted fertility. And so we went to go to a doctor who was recommended by one of my wife's close friends who had a successful experience. And he immediately told my wife and I that, you know, we needed to, wasn't going to happen for us naturally. Wow. And that we better go straight to IVF, and that it may not even work with IVF. We might even need a donor egg. And there was a lot of negativity around my wife's, my wife's body that was perfectly healthy. Mm-hmm. And so, and there was some information also about being an older father and what that does to, you know, sperm count and motility and things of that nature and morphology. And I learned all kinds of things about that. And we bought it. And so, you know, we were in a rush. We allowed ourselves to be disempowered. So we take responsibility, right? Nobody can take our power away. We can only give it away. But we allowed ourselves, we gave our power away to, I think I love what Mary talks about the minor deities, the MDs, right? Oh, and believing that they know better, even though my wife is literally a holistic health coach who believes in her body and health and heals people naturally. Yeah. And so we went on a journey that included 2 failed attempts at IVF. And if anybody's been through IVF, it's a pretty painful, arduous process for the woman, and for my wife. There was a lot of injections, and it was really a lot of hormones, and really threw her system out of balance, and a lot of hope and expectation. And then both of them failing was very heartbreaking for us. And we had some miscarriages along the way, and we had some, you know, experiences that were very disappointing and heartbreaking for us, because this was so important to us, right? Because we felt, first of all, we didn't even originally think it would ever be a challenge. Mm-hmm. And then we believed it would be a challenge. And because, right, you know, because our thought is so powerful, right, then we created the results of challenge and not having the success through the IVF route. And I think it was all about us manifesting what we were expecting, which was that it's going to be a problem, mm-hmm. right? Whereas if we had never allowed ourselves to believe that, then it wouldn't have been a problem, I believe, in my heart. But in any case, it was a gift in many ways. So, and I'll get to that in a moment, but there was a lot of, you know, there's a certain kind of, if you believe that it's core to your being and core to your purpose on the planet, to not be able to do something that you believe, and again, it's not for everyone, but if you believe that something is really core to who you are and what you want to create with your, you know, finite time on this planet, and you're not able to do it, it's very discouraging and very, you know, painful and sad. And we had to go through, you know, the ups and downs and the excitement of maybe it's going to work, and then the dashed hopes and it not working. And I won't get into the, you know, the details, the technical details of, you know, how many eggs were able to be harvested, and then the whole process. But it was painful. It was disappointing. And then somewhere along the way, we started to believe that there's another way.
So actually, I'm going to ask you about, I'd love to ask you about that, John, because sure. This is so important. And this is for all of our listeners, whether their dream may be to have a baby and that's not occurring. More than that, this is the anatomy of dream building, right? Yes. You can apply your story and your wife's story to, you know, in terms of the anatomy of how we move forth to, because there may be somebody who's, you know, whatever age that is deemed by society that's, well, good luck getting a relationship when you're X.
Exactly.
And that's for anybody. Well, 30. Oh, well, what do you mean 30? I'm 50 and I don't have a relationship. So, and then the feeling, because I hear you saying, and I love that, you know, you allowed yourselves to fall, not that you did it, but I love the way that you put it. You allowed yourselves to fall into that masked consciousness. So whether that consciousness is about getting, having a baby at a certain age, or having a relationship, or greater health in another way within our form, or more financial abundance if it doesn't happen by this, or, you know, X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So, and And at the level of facts and circumstances, it is, as Kirsten, one of our teachers, would say, it's a really rigorous opportunity.
Yes.
In common language,
Yes.
it is rough to not drink the proverbial Kool-Aid, right? Initially, I hear you say
to what Emerson and Thoreau called common hour thinking, right?
Exactly.
So-called common hour thinking, and we succumbed.
Well,
right?
And many people. The good thing, of course, is that at some point there was a transition. But it is, and it is, as Emerson said, right? We want to, stand guard at the doorway of our mind.
Yes.
Yeah. When you're like pew pew pew, all these little things going, facts, circumstances, MD, minor deities say X, right? And I really relate to that. And so, and before I say how I again relate to it, but just as a reminder for everybody listening that it is, there's a difference between the facts and circumstances and the truth.
Yes.
The truth that the power within you and Donna is greater
than any circumstance.
That's right. And that these beautiful, because this isn't to at all diss any doctors, right?
Right.
Because in my life, after my second major surgery and spinal cord surgery, my amazing neurosurgeon said, well, as I was experiencing paralysis for a second time in my life, said, well, if your body doesn't come back after a year, it's probably not. Like whatever you've got back after a year, that's it. And right. So, and that just becomes, and Mary talks about this too. It's because they're looking at their own experiences with their other patients. And it takes a lot, as it did for you and Donna, to go at some point, right? And for me to go, no, I'm different. Because had I believed that, had you believed the minor deities with all of their genius, because my neurosurgeon is a genius, let me just say, right? But there's some things that I knew more because I'm coming from within and going, nah, that's different. It's going to be different for me. Had I listened to that, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have the beautiful physical healthy body I have today. Perhaps, as you've said before, your life wouldn't be where it is right now had you continued to buy into that mass consciousness. And that is the work, because people are experts. So you had to dig deep, and you and Donna had to dig deep. So I just wanted to really highlight, so gloss over, that's a big deal. That takes that time, repetition, and that I'm going to think this, even though there's these experts and friends and other people who are saying this. And you and Donna at some point, I guess, decided it's different for us, or something to that effect. We're going to radically love what is and still know. Yeah. To that.
And I will say that I did not have the level of awareness or understanding yet about sort of the physics of transformation that we have learned, and that, that our intention, organizes the molecular structure of time and space, around it, and creates the results in our lives. I didn't understand that the way that I do now, but we were passionately dedicated in a sort of by any means necessary way that we were going to be parents, right? We had decided, and that included, if we weren't able to have our own children, that we were going to adopt children. But we made a decision at a certain point. I think we knew all along, but like by any means necessary, we are going to. So that was part of the energy that got us through. That we were, and also, not that it's the most important thing, but I was willing to spend I was willing to frankly go broke to keep trying. I mean, I know that sounds kind of silly, but I was not going to let, the amount of money that those procedures are very expensive, and insurance only covers like preliminary. And so we had so I'm proud of ourselves first that we started with that by any means necessary energy, that we were going to do this no matter what.
Yes.
And then there was a point where we started to remember who we were, who were people who were on a spiritual path, on a transformational path. Kind of took a deep breath after the second failed IVF, and a bunch of miscarriages along the way. And when you're in a fertility journey, you can actually get pregnant, but then have it not be a viable fetus. So that happened a couple of times. So it was a lot of roller coaster.
Mm.
And so then we started to go back to what we knew, which was visioning, praying, meditating. We did a lot of affirmations. We did a lot of praying together. We used a Buddhist manifestation prayer that we learned from Wayne Dyer. We were chanting Ah and Om and on a daily basis, visualizing. We went to our friend who is a clairvoyant, and we did an experience of calling in our baby being and really, really feeling the presence of baby beings around us that were wanting to come into form. And one of the steps that we took is that we were told, I can't remember if it was our friend or somebody, the dog will bring the baby, because you have to be. So it's, who are you being? If we're going to be a vibrational match to parenting,
Right.
let's be parenting now, right? It's
Right.
be, do, have,
Yeah.
not have, do, be. It's not, I'm going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to wait to get it before I start acting like a parent. So we went and got a dog, our, beloved Daphne, because we wanted to be parents now, and we wanted to be a vibrational match to parenthood, right? So we took every step
from the dream. So you were coming from the energy of parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we found really, I love the quote from 1,000 invisible hands will come to your aid, right, from Joseph Campbell. And I believe that, and as we know now, doing this work, as we set a clear intention, that, the universe, as we make a decision, the universe will organize itself around our intention. And so we were led to find this incredible doctor named Sammy David, who was interestingly, one of the people who originated IVF, but who decided to spend the last 15 or so years, he uses it when necessary, but developing alternative therapies for people to be able to have babies without that technology, without that medical intervention. So he became a master at that. He wrote the book called Having Babies. He's one of the, so it's nice when somebody is a master, both from within the kind of conventional wisdom, and also then rises beyond the conventional wisdom and becomes a real visionary leader in terms of fertility, which is who he is. And he steered us on a path. We went to my wife had always done acupuncture. She went to acupuncture. I went to acupuncture, and we took herbs. We started to do all of the holistic measures. And then what was interesting is that the doctor, really found very simple, acted like a detective, and really found things that, because he had the awareness to look for things that were very simple blocks to the fertility process that nobody talks about. So there's things like, not to be too graphic, vaginal pH is an issue. There are bacteria that men and women can pass between each other that can block the fertility process. There is something called natural killer cells. So that's what creates a lot of, it's really your immune system reacting negatively to becoming pregnant, which causes a lot of, of these pregnancies to not be able to be completed, right? So there was, causes miscarriages is the word I was looking for. So there were things that were solved with, like, a douche that costs $1.99. That could be solved. I think it was the vaginal pH issue, and there was simple medications that we could take to remove the bacteria and to release the strength of the reaction of the immune system in her body, and in terms of in clearing the energetic channel with acupuncture and improving some of the frankly, when my sperm count was fine and really not a huge issue. It was something that can always be improved. And so I did everything that I could possibly do. And it wasn't so much count, but it was shape and morphology and all these things that we learned. So willingness to do whatever it took, but holistic measures, right? Mm-hmm. And so we took those holistic measures, and what really nicely happened, just to finish the story, is we went in, and so we decided to do something that's a level of assistance called IUI. So there's no chemicals, but what you do is you go in at a certain amount of time, in a certain timing, into the doctor's office, and you inject, so that there's a better chance, as opposed to just making love. It's sort of a controlled environment. And there's a lot of timing related to it. So we had an acupuncturist in the room with us. Wow. We prayed and meditated with the doctor, called in the baby being. And what was incredible is, as the procedure was happening, our grandparents all visited us in the room. It was the most sacred, magical experience. And we knew that it was successful in that moment. I mean, it actually gives me chills to think about that. I saw both sides of my grandparents. My wife saw her grandparents, and they were with us, smiling in the room. And we just knew in that moment that the answer was going to be that was a successful pregnancy. And so we wound up having a healthy baby girl. And one thing that I left out is, when we were calling in the baby being, we had a crystal clear image in our mind of what she looked like. There was a moment where we both saw her, our own versions of her in our mind's eye. And so she was very real to us, what she looked at. She was a few years old. She had pigtails. She had a sweaty face from running around. She was exuberant, and she was looking at us over this fence. And so because we downloaded from the quantum field, right, the image of her, which was existing in superposition, right, as a possible future, we had a vision to live into. She was with us ever since we downloaded that. So sorry I left that out, but that was an important piece, because we had a tangible, real embodied vision of this beautiful being. And there was a moment, I think it was last year, when my wife took a picture of her, and she was almost exactly that image that we had both seen in our mind's eye. So we call her our miracle baby. Right. It was against the odds. Yes. A huge blessing. So.
And I love that. I mean, there's so much to that story. And, but just the last thing you said, your miracle baby, I love, and the definition of a miracle is being a shift in perception.
Yes.
Right? And that's what I found it to be for myself when I've looked at these, different physical rigorous opportunities of coming through the first time having surgery and having no feeling from the neck down and having to learn to walk again, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Being told, well, it was miraculous, but it was a shift in perception. It was me, it was for you and Donna saying,
yes,
by any means necessary.
Yes. And what would we do if we didn't believe it was impossible?
Exactly. Right? And then when you have, as we said before, those, well-meaning individuals who, whether it's, I don't want to get your hopes up or whatever, right?
Yes.
But, don't get your hopes up, because you probably won't be able to walk again. Yes. And you probably won't. And we go, it's different for us. In whatever way that we did that, we hold high watch.
And literally, we were just going to start making love a lot and enjoying being, married and together. And immediately the friends were telling us, go right to the doctor. It was like the whole thing was like we were on this, we got on a train. We got on a thought train, right? Which was about lack and limitation and fear, right? And competition and scarcity. There's not enough time.
Push energy, a lot of push
energy, right.
I got how, very much in the how versus the what.
Exactly.
Not what you would love. At some point, when you talked about that transition, you and Donna just,
It was like we took a deep breath. Yeah. And we remembered who we were.
And then you took action.
Yes, and then we took action.
But there was a lot of action that y'all took, because you could have taken one deep breath and gone back down that other path, which, and it's not about the judgment about that path, because I have a very dear friend who has twins now from that path.
It works for millions of people. It's a blessing path.
Right.
And
It's a
to be totally clear about, I think Western medicine, traditional medicine, is as much God as holistic medicine. It's all God, right? It's just that we entered it. Maybe it would have worked for us if we entered it from a positive attitude. We entered it from fear, so I think it was encoded with fear. It wasn't the technology. The technology is part of God, right? It was our path there.
Right.
And the way we were steered there as if it was the only possible way. But for my wife, it created a calling for her. And so she has transformed her holistic health coaching practice into a fertility coaching practice. She created a video on YouTube has 200,000 likes. She started a bit. She's writing a book, Poppin' Past 40. Yes. And she's helping lots and lots of women with their fertility journey. So we had talked about earlier, you and I, about the idea that, the wound is where the light shines in, right? And so this wound for both of us catalyzed an emergence of a calling for both of us to help people in the different ways that our souls have called forth. And so,
absolutely. Firstly, so I'll just say, check out, you got to look into Donna Shaw for the forthcoming book and follow her as well. But the Rumi quote, the wound is where the light enters us. And so I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about, because at some point I would imagine as you were on this journey, as it was for me, with a different journey, but with regard to health, where I was very critical of my quote unquote broken body, my body that couldn't do anything, right? I mean, different kind of not doing the things. Yours and Donna's was the thing that you wanted most was to have the baby. And for me, the thing I wanted most was to just be able to feed myself and clothe myself and, earlier on walk. But the radical love part and the component is, and I love my body as it is. And thank you, body. Was that, I would imagine that was a part of your journey. Was that a part
Absolutely.
of it?
Well, first of all, there was a lot around regret over waiting so long.
So were you beating yourself up a little bit?
A lot of regret. I mean, the logical mind knows in retrospect that Paloma could only have been born from that exact moment, right, in time. And we're so blessed to have her. But at the time it was, what's wrong with me that I couldn't find, Donna earlier? Why couldn't we have gotten our, excuse my language, SHIT together earlier in life to be able to be ready to be parents? And why did we wait so long? And why did I, and then, there's a lot about being a man, being a human, and wanting to be able to fulfill what seemed to be very basic responsibilities or blessings in life, and feeling of being inadequate, and I let myself get too old, or, and that my body is not what it was. And so therefore, my sperm count and all of those things are not what they would have been in my 30s or in my 20s. And and I think part of radically loving what is, and radically loving your self-acceptance and self-love is critical. And I think in partnership, loving and accepting each other and being able to be there for the other when the other is being self-critical. I think as much as I was beating myself up, I think my wife was really having a much harder time with that, and felt, the majority of the responsibility for it. And so there was a lot of loving her and helping her to find her own self-love as well as part of the journey. And that's what partnership is. That's what marriage is being there for each other, and, holding the high watch, so that when one of us was down, the other one was encouraging. And when the other was down, the other would be encouraging, and being that balance for each other, that was really important. Yes. But absolutely feeling of inadequacy and, what's my life worth if I can't do this one thing that's so important to me? What is the value of my whole life and my contribution to the planet? I'm sorry?
How did you shift that? That's a deep thought. How did you shift
Yeah.
that, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, it's reconnecting to the knowing that we are more powerful than any circumstance, situation, and condition, reconnecting to our spiritual practice, to our love for one another, and to our belief in ourselves, and also to loving and forgiving ourselves for, there's a great passage in the Bible that says, you know, he will restore the lost years the locusts have eaten. That's always been an important passage to me, because I'm definitely somebody you can categorize as a late bloomer. And there's always been a feeling of, you know, being late or being behind. You know, I had a lot of, you know, sort of early success in school and a lot of promise, but didn't fulfill getting married, having children, living my calling that I'm doing now until later on in life. And so there was a big theme of regret over lost years. And to know that, you know, in spirit, there is no time, first of all, and that loving yourself and connecting to spirit and transforming your belief in yourself and living into the life you would love living, and then creating love and relationship and partnership and serving others restores the lost years that were eaten, quote unquote, by the locust, that you can get that time back, not at the level of fact, but at the level of spirit, at the level of truth. And then to really forgive that there was no time lost, that that the tapestry of our lives couldn't have been any other way other than the way it happened, and we wouldn't be who we are had we not had every single experience. And as Mary says, the content of our lives has been the curriculum of our evolution.
I knew you were going to say it. I was right there with you, because you and Donna are in a very different place now. And
yes.
So you know, and through that journey, I get that. I really do get that, because my husband was, you know, the one taking me to every physical and occupational therapy. And the way I put it is that, you know, we were in the foxhole together. You know,
yes.
We were in the foxhole together, and we already had a solid foundation. I think about that too. And, you know, in past relationships, you might have had this experience. I didn't get married quite at the same time you did in terms of age, but it was a little bit later. I was like 35. And as a woman, like, what? But also knowing that it was so easy, you know, it was so easy. And other relationships had been very upstream. And
yes.
with my husband, who has John is his name too, best name ever, you know, it was downstream. It was like, oh, it's supposed to be easy. And yes. It was just like putting my hands up and going, wee. And now I know, you know, you want ideally, and as Mary says, the best relationships are friendships that catch fire. And we had that because you want to have that strong foundation for when things happen. So yeah. When we need to be in the foxhole together, and he's having to feed me and clothe me, and when you are, and I'm low, and you know, and when you're helping Donna in that way, and she's helping you, and
was something that brought us together.
Absolutely, and made you stronger.
And made us stronger, right? And created more intimacy and unconditional acceptance.
Yes, and you're this unified front. You were then, and now you're even, you know, more unified to be the best parents you can be, and are being.
Yes.
Loma, right? Of course. Right? There's only one thing happening. Exactly. There's only one thing happening. And
perfectly imperfect. Yes.
Perfectly imperfect. Loving. I love the Stephen Hawking quote is, there in the entire universe, there's no such thing as perfection. And if it weren't for imperfection, neither you nor I would exist.
Right.
So we give ourselves a break, and we get to love each other and radically love right where we are. And I think that, you know, we wouldn't have called it that. I didn't call it radical love when I was blessing my hands that, you know, could only put 2 beads together after, you know, months and months. And I still, but I now know it was radical love, because it was loving what is and blessing what was working. So on some levels, that's same thing you did, right? Loving your body. I'm not going to, because you had a choice. And as a man, you speak to that. Well, this kind of sperm count was this, and why can't I do this one thing? You could have, as a laser beam, focus on that, and likely may not be where you are today. But you chose to go, I love my body. I forgive, as you said, I forgive the journey, right? For, you know, you could have, well, why didn't I make this happen faster? But you and Donna both supported each other in this way of loving what is, and then having an open hand. I really hear that. That's a subtext of having an open hand.
Yes.
It wasn't by any means necessary like this. It was by any means necessary.
Right.
If it's adoption, we're open to that. But we are, you know, there's a baby being, and we are the parents, and
Yes.
you know, everybody's journey is different. Some people I know, you know, don't want to adopt, and that's a different journey. But I just think it's because that was so curious about your journey, John, because it is a very specific outcome that you were wanting. But you and I now know it's holding the dream with an open hand.
Yes.
So, you know, in doing that, it's this or something even greater still.
Yes.
You know, but what was the balance there? Did you stare down the dark? Was there a moment where you and Donna said, well, this may never happen?
There was a lot of dark. There was a lot of staring down the dark. And I think that's when we decided that we would be open if it didn't happen for us, that we would adopt, but that we weren't ready to make that step yet, but that would be something that we were, you know, that because we were going to be parents no matter what. And so I think that was a move. I think that was an important decision, actually, to allow ourselves to really be solid state. Yes. Right? Yes. Because we were really, you know, it was messy. Sometimes there were arguments between us when you know, when one or both of us wasn't responding well to some of the adversity we were facing, right? Yep. And, you know, that can cause you to be anxious, and there was a lot of hormones being injected, and there was sometimes there was some drama and argument. Mm-hmm. But there was generally a sense that I feel in retrospect, we were pretty solid state. Yeah. I will just say that I think that we did our best, right. But it's also absolute miracle that it happened for us. And if it doesn't happen for people, it doesn't mean that they're not doing an amazing job. There's something that's outside we're co-creating with the infinite. We do not have control, right? And we have to surrender the outcome. Yep. But I feel that we were genuinely solid state on this. We're doing every single thing we can possibly do. And we are acting as if we were believing in ourselves, and we were believing we're parents no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I think that solid state of the action and the believing that we're parents no matter what was part of the best that we could do. And then there needed to be the collaboration of the infinite. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, can happen or not happen, you know. And so I think we're very grateful and blessed that happened. And there are people who do everything that we've done and it doesn't happen. And that's also, you know, that's the challenge of living in an infinite universe, that we don't have the ability to understand or the ability to control it. We're surrendering that control. We're surrendering that control, and deciding, if we choose, we can decide to find even the seed of good in every you know, rigorous opportunity, and every challenge, and everything that, had we been given a choice, we would have chosen differently. And yes. And I think that is so important, because this is your journey and Donna's journey, and everybody's journey is different. And yes, you and Donna, you're the greatest and highest authority in your own life, as I am, and everybody listening is. And that path is going to lead us in different directions. But I do absolutely believe, like, as you do, that, as our mentor says, the content of our life is the curriculum of our evolution. So it's about who we become in the process, and whether that, you know, that thing we are holding the image of actually manifesting is downloaded from the metaphysical to the physical, from the quantum field into this physical field. It's trusting and knowing and becoming one with that infinite intelligence, and loving ourselves, radically loving ourselves. Yes. In the process. Absolutely. Yeah. What an extraordinary journey, and so important. And that's what really registered with me in regard to, and we all look forward to, you know, to Donna's book. And also important to hear the male side, the husband side of the journey, yes. To be able to say, listen, guys, if you're going through this, it's all good. I get it. I know what it's like to navigate this world as a man and still be able to talk about these things and love myself radically. And does it make me any less of a man? You know, in common hour speak. Yes. I mean, I think it's an interesting time to be a man on the planet. You know, it, masculinity and manhood is really being reinvented right now.
Yes.
And it's not, you know, to be a conscious man is to embody the divine feminine, you know, in I don't know if it's an equal measure. Perhaps it is an equal measure as in the masculine, but it's to be a fully well-rounded human, and which means to be vulnerable and open, and that's where there's power in vulnerability, right? And that's the hope of the planet, is that our species is evolving, and that the feminine is coming to save the earth, really. Because the plundering of the patriarchal paradigm is now being reversed by the rise of the feminine, right in time. And
preach.
Yes, exactly. And so we're part of that movement. Yes. Absolutely. And I don't think it's you know, and I think I'm part of that in all of the work that I do, but I also think it's not lost on me that I'm the father of a daughter, right? And that's a big part of my dharma, is to empower my daughter on the planet.
Absolutely.
You know, to live and to know that she can absolutely do anything that she wants to do in this world. That's
right. And she has these beautiful beings of light that are in the form of her parents, that are emulating that are illustrating that it's not just talk, but you're moving through life. You already have for her to come forth, and you continue to do so. So that is remarkable. And I'm so, as we bring our beautiful call to a landing, I'm so grateful, John, for you again opening yourself up to talking about your very personal journey. It served me, it served, I know, everybody on this call, and it's just another example of the power that we have within us when we can love ourselves, both sides, all sides, you know, quote unquote, warts and all. Like, I'm gonna love, I don't like it, but I can love it and move forward, and then into that greater knowing of who we really are.
Well, loving it transforms the energy and allows it to move through us, so that we can, you know, so that we can continue to move forward. And the resistance creates the contraction and the kink in the hose of the flow of our life force and our abundance and love and success and all of those things. And so,
all of those things. It's what when I was looking to define this, it's an alchemy that we create. Alchemy, an actual alchemy. We have the power to create alchemy, from the lesser thought to, you know, this sucks and I don't like this, and, you know, whatever it may be for all of us, to I'm going to love what is. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to love the fact that my body is this, or my relationship or my bank account is this. And then that alchemy, that it creates that lesser thought to the greater thought, which is the awareness of infinite power and potential.
Yes.
And then we move through life from that. So thank you for being an illustration of that. So John, will you tell us, as we close this up, how we can contact you, best way to contact you? We're going to have viewers who want to contact you, and anything you have upcoming.
So I just launched this week my new website, which I'm very excited with, johnmarkshaw.com.
johnmarkshaw.com.
Yes, and it's you can email me at john@johnmarkshaw.com. Pretty self-explanatory, and I'm really excited about my website. So all the information about myself and my work and some sample videos and everything is there. And I lead workshops at least once or twice a month, and all the information is there for people. And I'm excited, and I'm working on a book, and deeply grateful for how that is growing in the world as well.
Absolutely. And my friend, I'm just going to say that, johnmarkshaw.com. So JOHNMARKSHAW.com.
Yes, perfect.
Done and done. We want to make sure that is very clear. So thank you again. My heart celebrates you and your journey and your openness, and, you know, that transformational willingness that you have had and continue to have, and to be on our podcast. And it's a beautiful experience. And thank you so much, John.
Well, thank you, Corey, for this beautiful, incredible opportunity. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, grace, and beauty and spirit. It's been a beautiful communion, holy communion between us. And I hope it will be a powerful experience for the people who listen.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. So to our dear listeners, as always, I'm going to say, I hope that you love big, I hope that you be brave, and I hope that you share your beautiful, unique, one and the only universe, your light with the world. And I look forward to speaking with you again. Bye for now, as we say in Hawaii, ahui ho, which means until we meet again. Bye. Aloha.